What's going on, guys? Welcome to something a little bit different. This is going to be an episode review for the Lord Melloi, the second Case Files New Year's special episode, and I think it's called like episode 0.
I
I forget
I
what it was
don't
called
know
exactly.
what I don't know what episode this is, but it's just
On
mainly a
Crunchyroll,
special.
it shows up as episode 0 or something, and I forget the exact title. But it's basically just like a special episode, New Year's episode, and it does help to watch. At least I've watched the first season before watching this, but it seems kind of like a mostly like standalone sort of longer episode for the Lord Melloi Case Files. But yeah, of course, with me as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah, so like you said, it is a standalone episode. It doesn't really adapt part of any storyline from the novels, and unfortunately, it doesn't really hint at anything indicating that we might be getting a second season to this show, because they left a lot of plot points unresolved after the first season.
Yeah, and of course, like we did point this out when we reviewed the first season, the episode for the first season, is that it is kind of weird how they are adapting this, because for those that don't know, this is based on a light novel series, and they were specifically for the first season adapting the Rail Zepplin arc, which is like I forget which arc in the story it is, but it's not really following the chronological timeline from the story arcs from the light novel, which is a pretty weird way to adapt it. I guess it would make sense if there was, like, you know, if the stories could kind of, I guess, stand on their own, which I would say to an extent I felt like it kind of did for the first season, but I felt like we were also missing certain information about certain characters, like specifically like Gray and her relationship to Waver. Even though they do kind of you do kind of get the gist of what's going on, there are certain things that are being referenced with Gray and her origins that we're still not entirely sure about. Like, I wish they would have elaborated on more in the first season, as well as like certain other characters. But it does, of course, if you already know about other things in the Nasu-verse, it does also help. If you just watch the first season of the Melloi Case Files, you would understand most of what's happening. But again, I don't really like how they handled it, where they were just adapting like a random storyline instead of just going in order. But here it seems like, it seems like it's, I really don't know. I guess it's not really adapting, obviously, anything from the light novels. I guess it's its own thing. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I guess, like I said, it's its own thing, and it doesn't really, you don't have to have read the light novels to know this particular storyline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can assume this storyline takes place after the events of the first season, and it mainly involves Waver's relationship to some of the students that he's known back in the past. So the beginning of the episode, we're treated with Waver, taking another session with.
Well, one thing I would point out before you start is that the last episode from the first season, it took place around Christmas. And this also takes place around Christmas. So I guess, so it's hard to really pin down where it takes place, in the timeline of the series. But I guess this episode just takes place around Christmas, just because of the time it is, airing, of course, the time of year this particular episode is airing. So, but I just found that kind of interesting how, the last episode took place around Christmas of the first season, and this one does too. But we're not really given any definitive time when this takes place in the timeline of the series itself, in terms of like how much time has passed since the last episode or anything like that.
Yeah, I kind of missed out on that.
Yeah.
It's possible that this may have taken place around the same time as those events within the first season, maybe, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just but the storyline involving Waver in this episode is mostly involving his relationship with some of the students that he some of the classmates that he's known in the past, particularly this one girl. I think it's pronounced Camus. She's shown to be like more of a shy student that always carries around like this old looking camera and she regularly takes pictures of some of her classmates, particularly Waver, which throughout the entire episode, it's hinted that she has some kind of fondness with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, like they end up kind of reuniting with each other in the beginning of this episode, and we also get like a short cameo from Olga, where I guess she was going to give Waver flowers or something. I guess as a token of appreciation for what he. I'm guessing what he did in the first season. That story.
Yeah, it's involving what happened after he helped her out during the rail Zepplin incident. But of course, he ends up reuniting with a couple of his old classmates. One is named Amleth, and of course the other one is Camus, who of course like they catch up on everything that's happened over the past 10 years, and of course they know him. They know Waver due to the fact that he participated in the Holy Grail War and somehow managed to survive. Camus is I think the CEO of a video game company, and I think Amleth is also working for the Animospheres as well. But I forgot to what extent, of course.
Yeah. I think they basically say they've also been experimenting, I guess, with projection magic, and they demonstrate their abilities by projecting, I guess, some kind of I don't know what it is, like a griffin or something.
It looks like a griffin.
Yeah, some kind of griffin. And the CG for it is really not that good, I'll be honest. Like it's kind of dodgy. But yeah, like and then they talk about and this kind of bothered me because so they talked about they start talking about projection magic, and one of the things they bring up is them being able to project an entire world or something, which I don't know if that's possible. I know you can project items, but I don't I think what they should have mentioned would be something like a reality marble or something, which I guess it is kind of in a way a form of projection. So I guess in a way you could do that. But they don't specifically say like reality marble. They just say something like project another world or something, which I don't know if Magus Magi can do that. We know that Heroic Spirits can do it.
Yeah, I think there was one other person that was able to project it. No, I think it was mostly Archer and Ryder that's been able to successfully do that.
Yeah, Magi
but
could
of course
probably
they are.
do it, but it would probably have to be like a really experienced Magus, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so at the end of the conversation, they invite Waver to pretty much like form up a class reunion of like all the classmates that were involved in Kenneth and Mellioi's classroom from 10 years prior. And of course, Waver accepts the invitation. But before that happens, Camus asks to take one more picture with them. And of course, they take a picture with there's a picture with Waver, Camus, and of course Gray in the middle. And so the following day afterwards, Waver wakes up with his body being 10 years younger again, and he has no idea how that ended up happening.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Yeah, he's of course back to his how he looked in Fate Zero. So like a majority of the episode, is basically consisting of Waver trying to figure out how his body has reverted back to being I guess a teenager. And of course it just kind of, being the butt of people's jokes, of them being surprised at his appearance.
Yeah, and now also the fact that he can't consume any alcohol or
so not only has his body reverted in appearance, but he also has certain things that he's grown tolerant of as an adult, I guess, like alcohol and cigars. He's not. He can't really handle as much anymore because of his. I guess because of that, also reverting back to how it was when he was a teenager.
Yeah, So yeah, it goes on for, I guess, for the majority of several days, almost going up to like on Christmas Day.
Yeah, because
And
Waver has like an advent calendar, and it shows how long his body's been like that.
yeah, and so Camus ends up visiting Waver's place, and surprisingly enough, that she's not totally shocked at why he even appears that way.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, I could assume that Waver could have caught on to her behavior of his appearance.
Yeah, I
So
already
I
kind
mean,
of figured what the deal was before they, like they revealed what it was at the near the end of the episode was that the camera and the photograph had something to do with why his age had reverted back to him being a teenager.
hmm and so shortly afterwards, they Waver, and I think what was it? Ryan is also attend the what was it? I could
It
you could
was
say
like a
it's like a high
reunion.
school reunion.
So also we should mention before this happens too, they do kind of go back to Camus' perspective where she's like having some kind of a nightmare, and it shows. I think he was like a griffin. She's being attacked by a griffin in her nightmare, and she wakes up and she's got like we see that she has some kind of a scar on her body.
Yeah.
And we do find out about that later, but I was kind of like, I was really curious about that. I was like thinking, I was thinking maybe it was some kind of like failed magic she did, and it somehow like injured her at first. But yeah,
Yeah, but and of course, after her nightmare, she receives a mysterious phone call from a certain someone who eventually gets revealed near the end of the episode. So soon afterwards, at the time of like you could say like the high school reunion where um, Waver and Rhinez meet up with all of his old classmates. Some of them look significantly different than what they were like a decade prior,
mm.
and he also walks up to Amleth to talk to him about his projection magic, and pretty much deduces that the way he appears, the way that he is right now, is thanks to Amleth's magic.
Yeah. Yeah, he pretty much reveals that he's figured out what he was up to.
Yeah. There was another thing. Like Waver also ended up talking to his old friend Melvin. And he also mentions that Amleth also owes him like a huge sum of money. I think he mentions like
Millions of
$100 million. Yeah, but unfortunately Amleth wasn't able to pay him back. But I think he mentions that Camus, being the head of a video game development company, is able to, I guess, help him with his finances in a way. So how that's how Waver is able to partly deduce Amleth's involvement as to why he appears the way that he is.
Yeah. Yeah, like of course they're all shocked when they see Waver back in his teenage form. But then of course, like once Waver reveals that he figured everything out, Amalith like announces, that his basically just ends up using this this magic on everybody else there, and also projecting their old classroom. So now they've all like transformed back into their teenage selves.
Yeah, with the exception of Camus, who's also there.
Yeah,
and that's the moment where Waver supposedly deduces Camus' reason as to why she wants everyone to turn, I guess, basically in a way, turn back time in her view, because Waver deduces that Camus wants revenge against Amleth due to the fact that she, due to the incident that happened to her. I think, what was it, 10 years prior, she ended up getting attacked by, I guess, one of the griffins that Amalith projected, and it ended up attacking her and destroyed her magical circuits in the process, which caused her to be kicked out from the clock tower and pretty much, not being suitable to be a mage at that point.
Yeah, I mean, which I honestly didn't really consider, but yeah, that it could have been the reason. Of course, it doesn't end up being the real reason, which we find out at the end of the episode.
Hmm.
But also, I think it's at this point where we get the cameo of Toko Alzaki, which I really didn't say. I mean, she was mentioned actually at the beginning of the episode about how Waver had encountered her before, and I guess in a previous arc, she was involved. I guess with they were involved with each other, but she shows up here, and I was kind of surprised. I actually didn't expect her to show up in this episode. But I will say, unfortunately, she doesn't really she does do some things, but she doesn't really do anything that significant. She sort of ends up mostly observing what's happening, and she initially at least comes off like a villain, which of course it gets revealed later that's she didn't really she maybe might not have really been a villain or something. She was just I don't know.
Well, what Waver deduces that Toko's involvement is assisting Kamyu's pursuit to, I guess, to reverse, reverse time to what it was back 10 years ago. But in the process, it'll end up killing Kamyu if it goes on for any longer. But it eventually the spell, I guess, expands in a much broader scope, and Waver and all the other students get teleported into this I guess you could say it's a reality marble of what the place looked like 10 years prior, and they could see all of their past selves back when they were 10 years prior, and pretty much almost around the time of Fate Zero.
Yeah. And of course, meanwhile, Toko is just I guess watching this from a projector screen or something, as well as Kamiya. But basically, at this point, Waver has to figure out how to break the spell, and figure out what it was that there would be something, well, actually no, they use Gray to try to figure out what figure out what item would help them reverse the spell or something, that there would be a specific item they could use, and which ends up being this envelope that was given to Waver, that Kamio gave to Waver at one point, that I think that ends up being what it is that helps them out.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it was an envelope given to him by Kamyu, I think it was shortly before the events of Fate Zero. However, he wasn't able to open it in time due to the fact that he was in Fuyuki at that point, and he was never able to open it since then. So I guess that could have been the catalyst of what is happening, with the whole with Kamyu being involved with projecting this spell, I guess.
Yeah. Which it does hint at what her real motivations are, which is she pretty much just wants to just live out, I guess, really just kind of live in her memories for eternity or something, or however long she can. And Toko also reveals she would have helped her do this by I guess keeping everybody in in this sort of reality marvel, and just having their real bodies be replaced by dolls, so that they can just remain there.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it doesn't. Her involvement doesn't go beyond this afterwards. I mean, it'd be interesting, but it doesn't go beyond this. So eventually, Waver and Gray eventually end up finding the envelope with all the old photos that Kamyu has taken, and they eventually end up confronting Kamyu about this. And Waver, of course, pretty much deduces that it's because of Kamyu's fondness of him is pretty much what drove all this into happening in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seems pretty obvious when we see the flashback where she's giving Waver food. And I thought it was kind of funny because, when Waver observes this, he kind of like punches himself in the face. But yeah, it seems like he like realized it when looking back at his memories, but it's not something he realized at the time. But Waver basically like gives the speech where it's like, we need to, more or less boils down to, we need to accept, what happened in the past, or, we need to just move on, or move on in our future and not like dwell on the past, I guess is pretty much the gist of it. Which pretty much ends up help break the spell that she, the reality marble. So, and then of course Toko, decides to just end her involvement right there and just leave. So yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, she does show up again at the end of the episode, but aside from that's pretty much all she does in this one, which is a little bit disappointing. I hope she would have done a little bit more, I guess, or had been a little bit more involved. But I guess maybe she was in that previous arc they mentioned that we didn't actually get to see.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have liked to see that, but I'm pretty sure there are more stories involving Toko in future stories, and of course there's other like light novel stories involving Rin Tokasa as well. But that's like further ahead into the story than where it is right now. Yeah, but anyway, pretty much with the case being solved, Camus supposedly got pretty much is exonerated from the case. However, her partner Amleth doesn't get out so lucky after he had to end up selling all of his stuff and pretty much paying off the debt that he gave to Melvin all those years back.
Yeah, basically Camus ends up being acquitted because she technically or they find, I guess, that she technically it wasn't her fault or something, or she wasn't. Or I forget what the exact reason was, but she doesn't really have her crest anymore. So I guess that's why she can't really be judged. Because she's technically no longer a mage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so soon afterwards they say their last goodbyes, and then of course Waver thanks her for the sandwich that she gave him all those years back, and pretty much that's the last we see of her. And of course at the and then of course they meet up with Toko again about why she got herself involved. Yeah, but she doesn't really elaborate too much as to why. So she just goes off and leaves soon afterwards. And then by the end of the episode, we see Waver and all of his students and watching a movie together at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and that's how it ends. There's no after credits either, unfortunately. So there's no real hint of any sort of season 2 or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, this wasn't bad. Like I would say I enjoyed it for the most part, but it really, like, if anything, just like it's like we said before, it's just very much a standalone episode. It's not really meant to try to hint at another season or anything. It's pretty much all it is just a standalone story. But I think, like, as it is, it's fine. It's not really like the main series. It's not really great. It's just okay for the story it's trying to tell. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think of it?
I was hoping for a little bit more
Yeah.
out of this. I mean, I kind of I was hoping that it would involve more into developing more of the characters, like Gray, for example. But unfortunately, it didn't really get there. So it's just I think this episode was mainly more fan service than anything, including involving Toko Aozaki as as a special cameo appearance in this episode.
Yeah, that in and of itself definitely felt very very fan servicey.
Yeah, considering the fact that when this was taking place, it was during the Fade or Tight Moon Fest special that they air every New Year's. A lot of the stuff that they showcased in this special was involving a lot of Witch and the Holy Night stuff.
Yeah, so I guess in a way it kind of made sense that Toko shows up here.
Yeah, and of course with with her sister Aoko being like pretty much being the head of like a lot of the stuff that she's being advertised, including like what was it, the not only just the movie that's coming out supposedly sometime soon, but there's also the PS4 and Switch port of Witch and the Holy Night with voice acting Toko. No, not Toko. Aoko being a playable character in the Melty Blood game.
Yeah. I find it interesting that they're, of course the Toko shows up because of all that too. Like it seems like honestly, it's not really a coincidence. Like they probably did that on purpose. And also the fact that she has more like, I guess, villainous role in this episode, kind of like how she does in Witch on the Holy Night. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. So I mean, it was interesting to see Toko again, but like I said, it felt like they did, like the way she was utilized here. She just, she didn't really have too much to do. So it was more just so, for fan service, if anything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, hopefully we do get another season, I guess. Like, it would be interesting to see this continue, even though, like, I would say, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of the first season. Like, I thought it was just average at best. But, I mean, it would be nice to get a continuation eventually. But, this episode doesn't, like I said, doesn't really seem to imply that. But it was okay. Like, I don't really have much else to really say about it. Like, the story, like, it was just all right. And it didn't really add much to the series as a whole. It was just something that I feel like if you missed it, you wouldn't really be missing much. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe one day we'll see a continuation of this series, but yeah, I guess until that happens, we'll see you all next time.